I wanted to show you a few more cool things about vector layers and vector lines. The first one is that we have the ability to kind of edit our lines if we want to. So we're going to use this tool called the operation tool, and it's object, so operation object. It looks like a little 3D box with an arrow. If we use this, we'll be able to kind of click and make selections, like depending on how I drew these lines. I can kind of click them and make edits, so it technically could start messing up my artwork like so, and adjusting the lines. So if you've got cleaner lines than I do here, you could be able to literally move them around. So I'll get into that a little bit at the end of this about moving and resizing. But you have that option. We also can change the texture of our lines. So very similar, actually it's exactly the same as when we were doing the figure tools. We can change the shape of the line. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure the object tool is selected, and we're going to select all, and we can change the brush shape. So I have a kind of pencil-y kind of brush right now, but I could click pen and it's going to smooth out our lines. It also turned it blue because I have main color set to blue here, and I can also change that to be any color I want, including back to black. So I can change that. I can also change the width of the lines, so I can make my lines thicker or thinner. Just be warned, if you've drawn stuff, you might notice that your drawing might start to get a little bit warped. So if I go super skinny on the thickness of the lines, you're going to start seeing, hey, I actually went over this line 2 times. And now you can see that because now the lines are thinner. So you can literally see every brush stroke I took on this. So just be aware, you can also go thicker. So this is kind of like a cool thing that you can kind of edit the thickness of your lines. And of course, you don't have to do, you could do crazy, crazy things to your art if you wanted to. But let's say you're drawing a pattern on someone's shirt. You could draw this and then select that area and then change how the line is drawn. You don't have to do the whole image. You could just do like one portion of it and change it to something else. So let's go back to pen. And then if I grab like this foot or something over here, I could just change this little area. If I hit shift, if I hit shift, I can select more areas. And then if I change the brush shape, I could change it to something wobbly and weird. So you can kind of pick and choose what areas you want to alter. So I kind of said this in the last video, but we can, let me duplicate this just so we have it. We can also change this to a raster layer. So we can either do rasterize, and that'll instantly change it. We'll see the little like layer with the little box is gone, the little icon is gone. Or if I undo that, I can go to convert layer and change it back to raster. I can call it raster inks. So we can change vector to raster, but we cannot change raster to vector, and I'll show you why. So right now my vector is hidden and my raster is the one that's showing. If I were to now go convert layer, and let's convert this to vector, we'll leave it called, I'll call it raster 2. And if I do that, you're going to see it's kind of really goofed up my artwork. So this is how it's supposed to look, and this is what it kind of turned it into. So just be aware, you can go from vector to raster, but you can't go raster to vector without kind of goofing up your art. I also wanted to show you this. So with raster, let's say you want to change the size of this. Let's say we want to make this smaller. We can transform it really small. But then when we look at it, there's a good chance the lines are going to be fuzzy as compared to before. See how I had those crisp bitmappy lines for flatting? So if you do raster, you're going to find your lines start to get fuzzy. So let me undo it and do it the other way as well. We're going to make this really, really large. And then we'll be able to see really well. So, okay. It's going to think for a second because I'm doing something crazy. Thinking. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to me? Yeah, I went really big. Okay, so yeah, same thing. We can kind of see how fuzzy these lines got. So now if I try to make a selection here, we're going to have yucky edges. So that's why raster, it's really no good to kind of transform your lines. I have found that the best way to edit your lines is, like, let's say I think this eyeball is too much one way or the other and I want to change it. This is how I would do that with raster inks, raster only. I would do this. If I tried to transform and just scooch it over somewhere else, you're going to see that it also kind of fuzzies up the line a little bit. It might be hard to tell, but a lot of times it will actually fuzzy up the line by trying to do that. Actually, that one wasn't too bad, but I have seen it do that. So in past cases, oops, I just cut it. So in past cases when I wanted to move something and not lose the quality, I've had to literally like cut it on a new layer and then kind of move it around and then kind of re-merge them together again once I'm ready. So that's how I used to do it. But with Vector, we don't have to do that. So let's get our vectors back and we'll do the same thing. We're going to make sure object's selected and the right layer selected, and we're going to transform this real small like we did before. And you're going to notice, unlike the raster, we lose no quality at all on our lines. So if I do the selection tool and I select it, we're going to see we still got our beautiful crisp edges, and it's going to do the same thing when we try to blow it up something stupid big. So if I try to do really large here, and it's going to think for another 2 minutes. Nope, it did it really fast. That's excellent. So same thing. Now if we make a selection, it's going to be just our nice crispy edges that we love so very much. So that's like a really great benefit for Vector. As well as if I wanted to move a certain part, I do not have to worry about losing any loss of quality at all. So I could transform this big and small, same as before. I can move it around all around town. It's not going to lose any quality to it. Yes. So that is a great benefit to vectors. And I mentioned before, I typically do change it to a raster layer once I am kind of done, so I can kind of start changing the color of the lines. And like, let's say I wanted to make this a gradient. I couldn't do it right now. It's like just not an option because lock transparent pixels is off. But if I were to rasterize this and then do it, I could start like altering how my line looked. So I always, I know I said this before, I always duplicate it and I always just save it just in case. It's not going to hurt to kind of just save a backup, kind of like always saving a backup of your flats is a great idea. It might be a great idea to save your line art as a vector, which actually it isn't here. You want to make sure you've got this little icon and that you save it first. Those are reasons why vectors are great as well, as on top of the other reasons why vector is great. So I hope this is something that you start to do when you're doing your artwork as well.